we're gonna have our own food.
Well, that's great, and a lot of people should do that. I mean, my daughter has a very large yard, and they have 3 crops a year. And it's not a farm, but it goes a long way towards feeding them.
I hear you. Well, I tell you what, I just, I see it coming. I mean, we're on the railroad track. There's a freight train coming at us, and that light's getting brighter every day.
That's for sure.
But I tell you what, give us some dire predictions of what you see in the next 3 to 6 months.
Well, I think between now and the end of the year, I think we'll see inflation pick up again, probably get back up to, it's about 9% right now, real inflation. Probably get back up to 15, maybe higher, 15% or higher. I think that the government will continue through the Treasury Department as well as the Federal Reserve to find more ways to create money and credit to overwhelm the deflationary aspects of what is going on in the economy. Unemployment at the rate it's going could be, if you start in 1980, could be looking at around 10.3 million unemployed since the Republicans came into office for 2 terms, and now we have a new administration. And that's a tremendous amount of people.
Well, Bob, every day we hear about some big company laying off 5,000 to 10,000 people.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to have food put away, because, if you lose your job for 6 months or a year and you get enough to feed the family, at least you eat.
Yeah, I hear you.
And there's a lot of people getting laid off, and there's very little industry left in America. It's all been shipped off to foreign lands at the behest of the transnational corporations. And one of the things that we can do to help the worker in America is to institute tariffs on goods and services. And I think I'm probably one of 2 or 3 newsletters in the world who advocates that, and that's one of the things that made America what it is today.
Well, Bob,
is we had fair trade, but not free trade, and free trade's a disaster.
Well, I'll tell you something. According to our Constitution, I believe the only power that Congress has to tax is imports. Is that not right?
That's right, but we have a amendment which allows for taxation, which is not legally passed, and we have, even today at the lower rates, we still have confiscatory taxation, and we've got debt that is absolutely overwhelming. The country won't be able to dig themselves out, even in prosperity, for another 100 years. And that's why this depression that we're now in, that we began at the beginning of February, that's why it's so bad, because people think it's going to come and go and things are going to get better. And that's not going to happen. It's going to be a long-term proposition.
I hear you. Well, I'll tell you, Bob, I just, I'm just so afraid that when this thing comes down, what are these people in these big cities going to do?
Well, I think the disadvantage of the big city is that there's a lot of people. A lot of people out of work, a lot of people in debt, people at homes will continue to lose them. They'll be out of their home, and if they are out of work, they'll probably lose their vehicle, so they wouldn't even have a way to get to a job. And then they're on the street, and then they got to live under a bridge. I don't think they're going to be very happy about that. So I anticipate major problems in cities throughout the world, just not in the United States. I mean, you've seen all the demonstrations and rioting in Europe. over the last several months, and that's going to happen in the third world as well. And I think it'll lead to revolution in a number of countries, ours included. And, when that happens, anything goes. And that's why I tell people to be able to defend their families if they need be. And that's another important aspect of insurance or defense of your right to existence.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I'll tell you what, these people in the cities, they get hungry, they got no jobs, they're going to come to the country, they're going to start looking for food. And, man, he'll kill you over food if he's hungry enough.
Well, that's neat. That's why you need a flat shooting semi-automatic rifle with a 30-shot clip back to back.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you something. I like my old 12-gauge pump, 7 double-aught bucks in it. That's kind of mean. I really don't have to see a whole lot, just point and pull the trigger.
Oh, I like to reach out and touch them.
You like to keep them away for a little. You like to keep a little distance between you and them, huh?
Yeah, I don't want to have them breathing down my neck.
Yeah, I hear you. But you need to have that shotgun backed up just in case they do.
Well, that's true.
Hey, guys, why don't y'all call in and ask Bob some questions? I know there were several of you before the show was going to tell me to ask him questions, and I told you I didn't run no cotton-picking messenger service. So you guys need to get off your rears, pick up that phone, call 806-447-0270, and ask Bob a question. It's just about run out of questions. Bob, you got anything else you want to say?
I think that we should keep a very, very sharp eye on what's going on in Europe. And the reason I say that is that the European nations have had problems economically. They bought 60% of the junk, toxic waste, as it's called, these bonds that were made up of mortgages. And now they've got this terrible problem in Eastern Europe of nations there that can't pay back their debts, and they don't want to subsidize them. And if they don't help these people in Eastern Europe, it'll bring down the entire European Union as well as the Eurozone, which is within that. There's 27 members of the European Union, and there's 16 members of that 27 that belong to the Eurozone. And so you have Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Romania, Hungary, and Ukraine are all bankrupt. England is bankrupt. Ireland's bankrupt. Spain's on the verge. Italy won't be far behind. And their problems are not going to be confined to Europe. They're going to affect the whole world. And we got our own set of problems. America's broke. And there's no two ways about that. And we're in depression. And they're in a depression. I mean, just look at the drop in industrial orders and the drop in industrial production. And I'm talking about China, Japan, the rest of Asia, the U.S., Canada, all the European countries. We're talking about drops of anywhere between 25 and 50%. I mean, that's incredible. It wasn't that bad during the Depression. So we're already in another depression. And so this is going to be widespread, and it's going to be that way for a long time, and throwing money at it is not the solution.
I hear you, Bob. All right, we got a caller. Michelle, you're on the air with Ed and Bob. What's your question for Mr. Bob?
Hi, Mr. Chapman. How are you?
Thank you. Fine.
I'm so glad that you're joining us, and I do have a question. The last time you were with us, you talked about how it might be a really good idea to dump our certificates of deposit. And we happen to have one, and I have been begging my husband to get rid of it. And, all he's focusing on right now is that it's getting a fairly decent interest rate. And his answer to me is, well, if the dollar's going to collapse, what difference is it going to make whether it's there or sitting at home? And I keep trying to say, well, we need to be buying some silver or gold too, and I'm not getting through to him. So could you maybe speak to that again?
Well, I think it's pretty simple, tongue-in-cheek, get a new husband.
Oh, my God, Bob.
No, I'm only kidding. I think it has to be pointed out that, yes, banks are insured as long as there's money or as long as they can